Welcome back, everyone. So I thought I would do my 30,000 mile review. It's at about 29,000 and change for miles. The car will be 2 years old in 3 months officially, and I figure let's just get on with it. So I'm in the process of kind of cleaning up the interior, putting my winter mats in. It's now January 7th. And we still haven't really had a good snowstorm. So I just haven't been motivated to put the winter mats back in. So let's just do that. Make sure I get them in the right order. Is this the right one? No. Actually, everything else goes over there. So I got the interior kind of cleaned up for once. I've been pretty lackadaisical as it comes to taking care of this thing. I haven't really been doing my job. The car's kind of messy, inside and out. There we go. In fact, I'm so lazy I haven't even cleaned these up. I'm just gonna put them in anyway. It is cold. It's probably 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And my fingers are numb, but you know, there we go. All ready for winter. Yeah, should be good to go. Listen to those doors slam like a bank vault. Get my seat put back to where it belongs. So this is the preferred trim level for 2022, which is, I think, the same basic package as 2023, except for the power lift gate is no longer optional on the preferred package. What the preferred does get you is a couple of neat things. First of all, you get rear vents, which are not standard on the CX-5. As far as, I think the base trim level, the Sport, doesn't have these, but anything above Sport, you get the rear vents. You also get a rear center console with USB ports, which is a nice thing. On the trim level above preferred, you get heated rear seats, and the controls go right here. But you get a 60/40 split rear with remote latches. See, power lift gate. You can't get that anymore due to part shortages, and they never bothered to put it back in. So, but here the rear remote, the seat back is your center. This is another feature that you don't get on the base model, and there's one over there too. Okay, I'm going to start off this video with a negative. And I talked about it in previous videos, and if you go into the forums, it's kind of an issue. But this car is painted in the Soul Red Crystal Metallic, and yes, the rumors are true. This paint is unusually prone to chipping because of its application, because of its lack of robustness. It has nothing to do with the actual quality of the finish or how it was applied, because they did a fantastic job. The problem is it's just so thin that it doesn't take much to chip it, and this is 30,000 miles of wear and tear. You got this is a chip that I fixed, and there's a couple that I haven't gotten to yet. There's one there. There's one there. So we've got a couple of chips here and there that I have to address. But ultimately, it's not the quality of the paint, it's just the application being so thin. So if I were to have gone back to the dealer, turned back time, and bought the car all over again, I would have gone with a different color. I think their silver paint is a little thicker. I mean, that's just not just a Mazda thing. It's actually more of an industry-wide thing. I've owned many more modern vehicles, and it's just the way it is. I had a 2017 Hyundai Santa Fe Sport that also had paint chips all over it, and it was only 3 years old when I got it. So, I mean, it's just paint quality. I have to be careful with my wording here. The quality of the paint is fine. The issue is it's just so thinly applied. And also the materials are more environmentally friendly, which I'm fine with that, because older paint finishes, like what's on this 94 Miata, for example, they're very high in VOCs, so they're environmentally damaging, and it's a trade-off. So they have to use more environmentally friendly materials, water-based paints and such, and they are more prone to chipping. It's just the way it is. But that having been said, I would not switch brands because of the paint chipping issue. I would buy another Mazda. I would just go with a different color. And possibly, one other possible solution would be to just have, if I were to buy this over again, just have the hood wrapped in a similar matching finish, or in a clear coat, like a clear wrap or something like that. I think that might, it would alter the luster of the paint, but it won't chip. It's just a trade-off. But we'll talk more about that when we get onto the road. So to reiterate, this is a preferred with a few add-ons at the dealer level. For example, it has the wind deflectors. These are a genuine Mazda part. They actually say Mazda on them. It's got the splash guards. It's got the bumper protector. I also went for the cargo cover, which is about a $130 option. It's spring-loaded. You just unclip it from here and it goes into itself. Also went with the roof rails, which I bought from the dealer and then installed myself. So we're gonna start off. I've already recorded some of this stuff yesterday, but we're gonna start off the video on a freshly snow-covered road, because we just got hit with our first snowstorm of the year. Usually we get a pretty bad storm long before this, but weather patterns have changed, and here we are in the first week of January. So what are you gonna do? I want to start off the video by saying this. Why would you, and this is actually based on a comment that I received this morning on an earlier video that I posted of this car. And the commenter basically alluded to the fact that how is this thing even competitive in the modern day? This is basically it's a second generation CX-5, which rides on the same platform with the same powertrain as the first gen CX-5, which goes back to 2013. And why is Mazda still selling this car in 2023? Well, that's because people are still buying it in 2023. There's a huge demand for affordable, compact SUVs, and automakers are able to stretch out some of their earlier designs well beyond their prime by saving on tooling costs and continuing production with a few minor changes for regulatory compliance and just because of competitiveness. So Mazda's already replaced the CX-5 with a CX-50, but they're still producing the CX-5 because it is literally selling like hotcakes. They just can't keep them in stock. People love these cars because they're affordable. This is still priced like it's 2018 all over again. You know, for $32,000, you can drive off the lot of a Mazda dealer in a fairly well-equipped CX-5. Whereas that same amount of money doesn't go very far elsewhere. Because automakers have had to raise all their prices to compensate for tooling and development costs of newer products. But if something more modern is what you want, Mazda will sell you a CX-50 for just a few $1,000s more. This is actually the same thing that Volkswagen did when they released the new Tiguan. They kept the old Tiguan out for about 1 or 2 model years and then dropped it. Nissan did the same thing with the original Rogue when it was refreshed for 2021 or 2020, I think it was. So they kept the old Rogue on the production line, again, well beyond its original expected lifespan. Mazda's realizing that, you know, they have a real cash cow here. Not everybody's looking for the latest and greatest in vehicle. And there's nothing wrong with the CX-5 in this form. Maybe better tires would help. But for the most part, this is still a very competitive vehicle, not only on price, but on equipment. For about $31,000, $32,000, you get active radar, cruise control, or radar-assisted cruise control, which is, or depending on the automaker, they all have their own brand names for it. But you get all the basics and then some. Yeah, these tires kind of suck. These are actually replacement tires. The originals only lasted about 20,000 miles. It had Yokohamas, and they're made out of chocolate, so I had to replace those pretty early on. But long story short, I mean, you get lane guidance, you get active cruise, you get a reliable. Now this is what sets the CX-5 apart from some of the competition, is you still get a reliable electronically controlled hydraulic 6-speed automatic. That may not tickle any numbers and it doesn't sound good on paper, but in real life, it's a fantastic transmission that, if cared for, if maintained properly, will last forever. You know, this is not your CVT with the constant belt slipping and all the other problems that come with CVTs. This is not a dual clutch transmission, which will end up with clutch failure at some point. This is an old-fashioned automatic that just fucking works. And you know what? I'm sick and tired of automakers shoving technology down our throats that may sound good on paper, but in reality, it's actually a bad thing because it limits the lifespan of the vehicle. You also get a non-turbo 2.5-liter 4-cylinder that still manages to achieve nearly 30 miles per gallon city, or around town anyway. With no bells and whistles other than being in a GDI motor. So you've got to factor that stuff in. When you're buying a car, you know, what sounds good in an ad copy or on paper, you know, when you're comparing vehicles across different manufacturers, you know, what sounds good may not be the best in the long run. This is why so many modern cars are suffering massive and almost being mechanically totaled at around 100 to 150,000 miles because there's so much modern technology crammed into them. It's refreshing to know that in 2023 you can still buy something like this that is built like a proper Japanese vehicle from a time when they were actually quite reliable. As far as reliability concerns, I've been keeping my ear to the ground on these CX-5s and really all Mazdas in general, because I'm very interested to see how they hold up over time. And I have heard nothing of note related to any of Mazda's modern offerings And by that, I mean after they divorced from Ford, I've heard almost nothing negative about their cars. In terms of devastating mechanical, electrical failures. So, but then again, if you want the newer chassis, if you want the more modern designed vehicle or version of this car, you can buy the CX-50, which is exactly what it is. The CX-50 will replace the CX-5 at some point, but as long as people keep buying CX-5s and Mazda's still profiting off of them, they're going to keep selling them. It's and again, Toyota's done the same thing with their 4Runners. Nissan made the same pickup truck for 15 years, the previous generation Frontier. And there's actually a little bit of a benefit when you're buying something like this. If you're not concerned about keeping up with the Joneses, you can at least rest on the fact that you're buying something that is completely all the quirks and bugs have been worked out entirely by the time you get to buy something that's been on the market for more than 10 years. And that actually, I wish more people would consider this, because automakers would be more inclined to build more reliable and better built products rather than shoving technology down our throats in the form of new innovative ways to make a vehicle fail. Okay? I mean, I'm a little cynical, but there's a reason for it. I've owned enough cars to know that when you finally find something that's built well, even though it may not be the latest and greatest of technology, it's a better vehicle overall, especially in a long-term ownership scenario. So as far as my my ownership experience in the first 30,000 miles, and again, it's timely that I do this because when vehicles end up on the used car lots as off lease, they're going to generally have between 25 and 35,000 miles. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. But leases typically are about 30,000 miles long. So when you're shopping for a used vehicle and you're considering a CX-5, from my experience, the first 30,000 miles have been nothing but problem-free, with one exception. I had one headlight fail because now modern cars, modern technology, modern problems. You've got LED headlamps that are required to have automatic beam adjustment built in. So what that means is there's an electric motor mounted in each headlamp assembly that's linked to a leveling sensor somewhere in the vehicle. And if the vehicle is loaded down in the back, for example, the beam will automatically compensate by readjusting its position. Of course, that introduces a failure point, and that's not a Mazda thing. That is really just an industry thing. And it's just, anytime you introduce additional componentry, motors, gears, servos, you're just asking for more trouble. But consumers have demanded brighter headlights. Automakers responded. Here you go. Here's LED. Here's HID lamps. Here's, projector lamps. These are all things that you can get in a modern car. But I had one of the electric motors did in fact fail. I think the mechanism jammed up. Maybe some debris got in there from manufacturing. Who knows? Stanley Lighting out of Japan makes these headlamps, and they also make them for Honda as well as Toyota, I believe. So I can't really lay the blame on Mazda because they neither designed the lamps or assembled them. But bottom line, it was a warranty repair. But I did ask what it would cost to fix out of warranty should this happen, out of the manufacturer's new car warranty, and it's hideously expensive. You can be looking at around $1,000 to $1,500 for a headlamp because of a motor. I mean, it sounds absurd, but that's the reality of it. Speaking of 30,000 miles of driving, I've taken this car on numerous long trips. I'm talking I live in New Hampshire, as you can tell. I live in New Hampshire, and I drove this car from New Hampshire to Smyrna, Tennessee, when it was just a little over a year old. My girlfriend, now my fiance, and I were both very comfortable in that trip. I could not believe how comfortable the interior is in this car. That was a very long trip, and I mean 16 hours of driving one way. And I neither felt fatigued nor uncomfortable, no sores, nothing. It was like I sat in a zero gravity chair for 16 hours. I mean, I couldn't believe how comfortable these seats really are. I've taken much shorter trips in better vehicles and felt fatigued. Not this thing. These seats just support you in every possible way imaginable. They're just very comfortable. They're padded just right. Now, this is a preferred trim level, so it has the better seats. So I don't know how well the sport or the whichever one's below preferred, I don't know how those would handle over that course of time, but I can tell you for sure, you know, the preferred has amazing interior. We also drove it to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New Jersey. We've taken it to Derby, Vermont, and we've gone everywhere in this car, the White Mountain region. And in no scenario have we ever felt any comfort issues. Fuel mileage on the highway in this car has been a pretty average 32, 33 miles per gallon with me driving it. And that's 2 people plus luggage in the car. The highest I saw was like 35. Oop, watch out for snow drifts. About 35 miles per gallon is the best I got out of this car. And that was running it on ethanol free. We filled up with ethanol free in Virginia. We don't get ethanol free gas in New Hampshire. It doesn't exist up here. Despite what people outside of New Hampshire might think, it just isn't a thing. But I filled it up with ethanol free, and I did notice a slight bump in fuel mileage. One of the nice things about owning a car like this, again, is you get the peace of mind of something that's been on the market for, well, forever. Basically, the floor pan and down, the drivetrain, the floor pan, the suspension, all dates back to 2013. And Mazda is one of those companies where they get something right, and they don't just redesign it for the sake of justifying their own jobs. A lot of automakers do this. They'll get something really nice, they'll put it on the market, and then they'll just like, you know what? Let's just change it up a little bit. Mazda doesn't do that. They're kind of like Toyota in that regard, you know. And now that Mazda is owned partially by Toyota, I'm noticing some pretty good stuff going on in their quality and in their designs. Toyota bought into Mazda because Mazda has some amazing engine technology. They're one of the bigger innovators in the internal combustion segment, which, like it or not, internal combustion is here for the long haul, and you know, somebody's got to build these engines, and Mazda's definitely made their mark where it matters. Because right now everybody's still buying ICE vehicles, like it or not. Numbers don't lie. More people are going electric, but the majority of us normal folks are still buying ICE vehicles because they fit in our daily routines. But I'm not going to get into a debate on electric cars right now. That's not what this video is for. But what I'm saying is Toyota invested in Mazda because Mazda has some great technology that Toyota wanted to use in some of their engines. So, you know, that is something to consider when you're shopping for, you know, a compact SUV like something in this segment, or really any segment that Mazda competes in. So in terms of durability, reliability, appearance, I have no complaints, with one exception. The paint on this car, and I'm going to put a clip in right here. So as you can see, you know, the crystal, pearl, metallic, whatever the hell it's called, is a finish that I would avoid. I wouldn't buy one in this color again. I would stick with something more conservative, like a gray, a beige, silver, something that not only hides chips easily, but also is less prone to it. The reason that this particular finish is so chip prone is because of its application. It's such a thin paint to achieve the optical effect that they were going for, that it is more prone to chipping. And at some point, I'm going to have to budget to have the hood repainted. I'm willing to do that. If I were to buy this car over again, knowing what I know now, I would have gone with a different color. That having been said, I have been getting a lot of compliments on the color of it, especially after I wash it. This car glows like the sun. It is a beautiful finish. It is one of the most beautiful paint jobs on any production car today. Mazda really takes pride in that. If you happen to buy one because you love the color and you don't care about the hood chipping and everything, what you can do is get yourself a paint protection film package on the nose of the car, and you should be fine. I didn't do this because I didn't think I needed to, but I'm looking at the hood now, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I just might have to get this thing painted at some point, and I'm willing to do that. I love the car enough to actually do that, and that just might be what I do. I would not, and let me repeat myself, I would not skip Mazda. I wouldn't take Mazda off my short list of automakers to choose from because of paint issues due to durability issues. And here's why. When you're buying a car, new or used, you have to decide. Now, every automaker's got their quirks. Remember this. Subaru, for example, there's one in front of me. Subaru is known for their all-wheel drive, handling in the snow, blah, blah, blah. They're also known for engine problems. They're also known for transmission problems. Toyota, humble Toyota. What could go wrong in a Toyota? Well, if you watch the Car Care Nut, which is a YouTube channel that I love, this guy is a Toyota mechanic, and he generally sings the praise of Toyota and really drinks from the Toyota well. But on the other hand, he also has talked about many engines and drivelines that Toyota has developed that just don't hold up and don't live up to the Toyota name. You could buy a Nissan. Well, Nissan makes decent engines, but they make shitty transmissions. Terrible. Some of the worst transmissions on the market are from Nissan, and specifically Jatco, who supplies them. Nissan is also known for some very interesting engineering that doesn't usually hold up over time. My point is this: no matter what you buy, there's going to be something that goes wrong with that vehicle, and I'm willing to sacrifice a paint job for better drivetrain, better handling, and better build quality. That's just me. I like what Mazda's producing, and it's not all perfect sunbeams and rainbows. I mean, the interior plastics of this dashboard, like especially around the column, well, they're just a little flimsy. I mean, but you know what? It's not a structural member, and it's not going to break. It's just flimsy, you know? Not everything in a car has to be made like a bank vault. I've chosen the path I want to take, and I'm going to stick with it for now, is what I'm saying. I've test driven RAV4s. I've test driven numerous Toyotas, and I just don't like them. I don't like the way they handle. I don't like the seating position. As soon as I got into this Mazda CX-5, I knew this was the vehicle for me because it just fits. I've owned several Hyundais over the years, and I genuinely liked Hyundais. I test drove a Tucson, which is the direct competitor to the CX-5, and I'm like, hell no. I do not like this vehicle. It just felt so weird and awkward. I drove, and I thought, well, maybe it's the one that I was driving. So I had the saleswoman, I was actually looking at buying a Tucson. So I had the saleswoman pull out another one, and another one. I drove one with the dual clutch transmission. I drove one with the CVT, and I think they had one with a genuine 6-speed automatic. Neither one of them. I'm like, don't like this car. It doesn't feel right. It feels chintzy. And the Tucson's not a bad car. I'm not knocking it. I just don't like it. I drive this CX-5 and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. The handling, the ride quality. You can't, not only the ride quality, but the sound dampening. So Mazda put sound deadening everywhere in these cars. More sound deadening than you're ever going to find in the competition, and it shows. You've got double paned glass all around the front, single pane in the rear, which really helps to dampen road noise and wind noise. Double sealed doors rather than single. You've got an acoustic belly pan, acoustically designed wheel arches, which are made out of like a dense fiber-like substance, which helps reduce just wheel noise, road noise. And it's just, they're doing it right. You know, they really nailed it with this car. So that's my 30,000 mile review. Would I buy another? If let's say I get hit by a plow truck today, am I buying another one? Hell yes. I will buy another one. I'm not even going to buy a CX-50. And another thing, the CX-90 is off my list. The CX-90 I was all excited about. But Mazda kind of did the German thing. They over-engineered that car to the point where if anything breaks on that car, it's just not worth fixing. Mazda overdid it with the CX-90, and I think it's going to come bite them in the ass. Like I said, I'm being objective here. I've watched a couple of videos of the CX-90 and I was not impressed. It is way over-engineered, and it's like BMW problems for a Japanese car price. I mean, it is not overpriced, you know, $40,000 for what it is. But they just missed the mark everywhere in that car. It's got a cool inline-six engine, but that's all it's got going for it. I mean, the hybrid aspect of it is a failure. It's not really a hybrid in the sense that you think a hybrid is. It's just a complete failure. I haven't driven one. I actually may test drive one just for the hell of it. But I am not impressed. I think that, really, to do any basic maintenance on that vehicle, you have to completely disassemble the whole fucking front clip. They just overdid it, and I have a feeling that it's going to be a failure, especially after the lease period. 30,000 miles, 50, 60,000 miles or so. They're going to be junk. Once the warranty's up, people aren't going to want to hang on to them. Here's a Subaru right there. A lot of Subarus up here. That's another one. I've driven Subarus too, and I don't like them. They're just awkward. They're just awkward. I love Nissan's driving position. I love their road manners. And to that extent, some of the Hyundais I've owned, I've enjoyed driving. But Toyotas and Subarus are the two I've driven a lot of different models, and I haven't really found that bowl of porridge, if you will, that I would be willing to eat. I've even driven Fords that I've liked, but not really a Subaru or Toyota guy. I think that they both make great products for what they are. I think Toyota, let's put it this way, if I were ever in the market for a small truck, I would buy a Tacoma, regardless of my bias against Toyota. I would buy a Tacoma in a heartbeat. But I also don't want to pay all that markup that they're charging for them. But bottom line, if Mazda, if they don't fuck up the next generation CX-50, I may buy one. But if they over-engineer it like they did the CX-90, I'm going to have to switch manufacturers again. But bottom line, in 2024, if you're in the market for a compact SUV that doesn't give you anxiety, this is what you want. You want something that's been proven. You want something that actually has some luxury to it that you don't get in a RAV4 in the same price bracket. You can't beat the CX-5. And again, Mazda's able to keep their costs down on these because their tooling is paid for. I mean, they've made billions of these things. So the development costs, the tooling, it's all sunk. You can't beat that. And it's just, and again, as far as going turbo versus non-turbo, I went non-turbo because I didn't want to deal with the long-term ownership experience of a turbocharged engine. So I went with the normally aspirated. The nice thing that Mazda still does for you is that you can still get a fully decked out CX-5 with a turbo or without. Some automakers, they feature lock those things. Like, you have to pay for the turbo to get heads-up display, to get air-conditioned seats, to get this or that other feature. Mazda doesn't do that. And one more thing. This is a 2022. It does not have a touchscreen. I've had people argue with me over this. There's no touchscreen. I'm in park, okay? No touchscreen. It's all controlled by this knob. Now, because Mazda has gotten so many consumer complaints about not having a touchscreen, for the I think it's the 2024 model year, possibly 23, but definitely 24, they've added a touchscreen to the CX-5. And that is really just to appeal the masses so that they can get on with the business of selling cars. Too many people are just, I want an iPad on my dashboard because I'm stupid. I'm sorry, that wasn't very nice. I apologize. I apologize, Lord, for I have sinned. In all seriousness, it is, look, you're parked in a parking space. Fine, put in a touchscreen so I can use it like an iPad. I don't like that myself, but that doesn't mean the complaints of others don't matter. I mean, it's just, I like using the control stick. It just works. It's also less distracting. But while Mazda did give you a touchscreen for the 2024 model year, they locked it out unless the car's in park, from what I've heard. I don't know this for sure, but it only works when the car is parked. So you get your touchscreen, but they're not going to let you use it if the car is in motion. They take distracted driving very seriously. In fact, other automakers are starting to go down that path too. So, you know, it is what they want to do and whatever. But fine. You get your touchscreen, but, you know, is it a competitive package in 2024, sorry? Not by the numbers. If you're doing, you know, because automakers are always trying to one-up each other every year. But when it comes to older products like this, Mazda doesn't care. They know they have a good vehicle on the market. They know that people want it, and they know that people are going to buy them. So why dump crazy money into updating a vehicle that is actually going to be outgoing at some point anyway, you know? The last facelift was in 2022, and I think it still looks good. I mean, this car still looks good parked next to park it next to any brand new Hyundai, and it still looks amazing. But it still has that nice conservative look to it that I personally like. It's not garish. There's not one angle of this car that is ugly or out of place or awkward. But some of the latest offerings from other automakers, there's not a good angle at all. I'll leave it at that. Like the RAV4, for example. There's a RAV4. That's a current gen RAV4. I think that looks pretty good. I think that is a nicely styled vehicle, but it's a little bit overdone. This is way more conservative styling-wise than even your RAV4s, and that's crazy. But it still looks good. And Mazda has some of the best paint colors, hands down. Even their new sand, it's like a desert sand type color. I even like that. I mean, it's like it brings back that beige color that used to be popular back in the early 2000s, late 90s. But it's a more modern touch. You know, it's a more modernized version of that color. I've always kind of liked sand and beige colored cars. Maybe because my grandmother had one. Maybe that's why. But they also have a couple of nice other trendy colors. They've got this, what the hell is this? Soul Red Crystal Metallic. They've got that. They've got some nice blues, some really nice grays and silvers. Subaru gets all of their colors from the watercolor palette, I think. and they're kind of bland and muted and ugly. Even their orange was kind of I like orange cars, but their orange, it looked kind of dead. But that's what makes a Subaru. Anyway, until then, guys, if you're in the market for a compact SUV, I strongly encourage you guys to do what I did. I drove a RAV4, I drove a Tucson, and I drove a Forester. And I bought a CX-5. And they were all within the striking distance, price-wise, of each other. The only exception being the RAV4, because there was a waiting period for those, like a 6-month waiting period, which I think is over now. I think they're finally producing what they're selling at a decent clip. I've ridden in a CRV. I didn't hate the CRV, but I felt it kind of cheap feeling. The doors, the seats, all felt kind of chintzy. But test drive them all, and don't let the salesman tell you otherwise. Test drive, and let the test drive, let the car speak for itself. Don't listen to what people like me say. Drive the car, see how it feels. If they'll let you, do your normal commute with it. Have the salesman say, hey, I'll buy you lunch. Let's go do my daily commute in this car. Let's take it on the highway. And let the car speak for itself. Because at the end of the day, reliability-wise, most automakers are fairly close in terms of expected lifespan and reliability. They really are. They're all very close now. I mean, we figured out how to build engines long ago. My only issue is in drivetrains that are over-complex and have certain characteristics that are guaranteed to fail. That's my only gripe. Like CVT transmissions and dual clutch transmissions, in my opinion, I'll never own. If I have a choice, I'll never buy one. I've owned 2 CVTs. I didn't like them. They were just a bore to drive, and they started acting up in the higher mileage range, which is why I got rid of them. That's all I got for you guys. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay safe.